Hey YouTube, what I'm going to do now is put together just a short video of some of the stuff that I was listening to today. This is Lex, of course.
Alright, hi everybody, how we all doing? Today's ride's gonna be slow, so goes into it a lot. It says the UN committee also recognized in its concluding observations that the Holy See is responsible for the past and present effects and ongoing legacy of these historical racist legal documents, and that in addition the Holy See must be in direct dialogue with appropriate representatives of indigenous peoples to discuss its accountability. Okay, so again, when I ask you to participate and you don't do anything, you just sit there and keep watching like this is a scheduled program, it grows a desire of disgust within me. And I'm going to tell you what this means. It means because nobody forms into a group and says that they are the new committee for all of these people who are in fact different Cherokee bloodlines that experienced slavery, land theft, rape, murder, and racial discrimination. So that means they're going to assign a fucking group. And that always means that white people will control whatever.
Now, what I'm going to point out is, even when a group does, get together and say, we represent these people, Drop was just talking about this. Now, Lex, that was his last video, and I watched that this morning. And then Drop's video maybe a couple of hours ago, and this is what he was saying to look up the Cherokee Indian cases in the 1830s. And this document is on www.pbs.org/wnet/Supreme Court /antebellum. And no. What I'm gonna do is try my best to copy the link. Anyway, I need to really get the link back up there, but let's see. Okay. Anyway. It says the Cherokee Indian cases 1830s. In the cases Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. And of course I looked this up because I am from the state of Georgia. 1831, and Worcester versus Georgia 1832. The U.S. Supreme Court considered its powers to enforce the rights of the Native American nations against these states. In Cherokee Nation, the court ruled that it lacked jurisdiction. So this is what does happen when people have tried, over in different times to stand up and be like, hey, stop acting like we're not here, we're here. So, the power, and it says jurisdiction, and then it says the power to hear a case, to review claims of an Indian nation within the United States. In Worcester, the court ruled that only the United States and not the individual states had power to regulate or deal with the Indian nations. So they didn't want to touch it, basically. Like, take that up with your the people in charge of us, so to speak. So in 1828, the state of Georgia passed a series of laws stripping local Cherokee Indians of their rights. The laws also authorized Cherokee removal from lands while sought after by the state. So they didn't want to touch the fact that you were, standing up for yourself, but they did want to come in and take your land. And this is my thing. Not that they, did this, did that, but they They drew up papers, man. They came in, they invaded, and the first thing they did was what? Patented from 36,000 to 440,000 patents. So they came here just stealing. There's no way possible. And then, you know, they brought all their stuff and all their people and all their cousins and just overpopulated just from the jump. They didn't ease it in. And during this, they slaughtered so many people of us, our ancestors. So here they're saying, we're not going to deal with that, but we do want your land. So this is when, in defense, the Cherokee cited treaties that they had already negotiated, pieces of paper that these people had already signed as an independent nation, with the United States guaranteeing that the Cherokee Nation both the land and independence. Now, after failed negotiations with President Andrew Jackson and Congress, the Cherokee, under the leadership of John Ross, sought an injunction in order to stop at the Supreme Court against Georgia to prevent its carrying out these laws. And I'm just so annoyed because it's just like, what won't you do? You know, what won't you do? For money, man. I mean, I had commented on Drop's page. I said, sometimes I just can't fathom the amount of evil that you have to be to come in. I know that people conquered people and, you know, but conquering and invading are two different things. Anyway, this is Andrew Jackson. Over here, what I'm going to do is click on the picture. This is him. And when I look up the pictures, these people, and like I said, I'm not talking about all, but most, they look soulless. I mean, you have this short memory. You never want to discuss what your ancestors did. Like I said, my neighbor, once she gave me her rundown of her black movies, I was just so annoyed. I'm like, on what planet did you think that was proper? Like, we're being gunned down and you're talking about your Tyler Perry movies? Like, come on, lady. Anyway, this says that the court in Cherokee Nation versus Georgia ruled that it lacked jurisdiction to hear that case. Yeah, to hear the case and could not resolve it. The court began by sympathizing with the Cherokees' plight, acknowledging that they had been persecuted and marginalized by America's European settlers, then asserted that Indian nations were both foreign nations and people within U.S. boundaries. Just like the video just dropped. When the guy from BP Earth, he goes into, oh, well, we understand, but white supremacy rules. It's just like, please. And this is them trying to fight it and going to a court that was not for them. This system is not set up for you. It's never going to be those balanced scales, the scales of justice. It's never going to be balanced. All this stuff comes back to me in my mind the more of this stuff that I'm finding out. The scales of justice were never balanced. That's why when you see them, they're not balanced. Let's look it up. Maybe there is a picture. But come on, computer. Not quite. And see, that's why I gotta go back to my old Yahoo. I can't even get anything in because of all the scripts that's running on this Yahoo homepage. Oh my goodness. It's just ridiculous. And this is without my permission. So annoying. Let me see. I could be wrong, y'all. This is what I always have seen. The scales of justice unbalanced. Now there are some pictures on here where they are balanced, which I've never seen those growing up, balanced scales, but they're always leaning more to one side than the other. And then I'm just looking at this statue here. It's like these are the people that designed it. So if it is balanced, it's balanced for a certain group of people. Now, let that be the reason. Anyway, we're going to move forward. I just get so mad sometimes. Just some of this stuff is mind-blowing. Okay, so we saw him. Now, okay. So, the court began sympathizing. Let's go over that again. With the Cherokees' plight, acknowledging that they had been persecuted and marginalized by America's European settlers, then asserted that the Indian nations were both foreign nations and people within U.S. boundaries. In other words, the Cherokee, though sometimes viewed as independent nation, were also dependent people on the nation that enveloped them, that invaded them. Thus, the court asserted that foreign nations, as used in the Constitution, could not include Indian nations. Oh, this is the hijack. That's what Drop is always saying. This was the hijack. Okay, so though sometimes they were viewed as independent nation, they were also dependent people on the nation that envelops them. Thus, the court asserted that the foreign nations, as used in the Constitution, could not include Indian nations. The wording, man. This is what Let Us Find the Truth is always talking about, the wording. I had to go to that etymology and bookmark it because it's like, okay, so foreign nations, as used in the Constitution, could not include Indian nations. Just the invaders only, okay? Because the Constitution only authorizes the Supreme Court to hear cases brought by foreign nations, not Indian nations. So the court was not authorized to entertain this case and dismissed it. In the meanwhile, in 1830, Georgia passed another law requiring its citizens to obtain a state license before dwelling inside the Cherokee Nation. Wow. So you got to become a member of the state that invaded you before you could live on a reservation. Okay. License before dwelling inside the Cherokee Nation. So a group of missionaries. And what did Lex say the missionaries were? What did he call them? Well, let's just call them the Christian Mafia. Let's just call them that. Okay, so the missionaries, they were on a mission, residing there, including Samuel Austin Worcester, refused to obtain such a license. The missionaries were known supporters of Cherokee resistance to Georgia's removal efforts. Worcester and a fellow missionary were indicted by a Georgia court, brought to trial, and convicted. Now, Worcester appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, claiming that the Georgia court lacked authority to convict them. Now, on review of the case, the Supreme Court in Worcester versus Georgia ruled that because the Cherokee Nation was a separate political entity that could not be regulated by the state, Georgia's license law was unconstitutional, and Worcester's conviction should be overturned. And that, let me see. All that his conviction should be overturned. Okay. So the court first pointed to evidence proving that the Native American communities were conceived as separate nations dating back to the time of early colonial America. And then the court then argued that today's treaties and laws of the United States also contemplate the Indian Territory as completely separated from that of the states, and provide that all intercourse with them shall be carried on exclusively by the government of the Union. Therefore, only the United States can negotiate the terms of Indian lands and use thereof. States lack constitutional power to deal with such nations at all. Thus, Georgia could not pass the license law and convict Worcester for violation of that law. So he stood up for himself. That's what we got to do. He had proof, and he cited some stuff. Sister. Let's see. And excuse me if it's not a him. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so okay. So this is Samuel Worcester. Y'all see the picture. This was his home, which is nothing about nothing. Okay, so he was who? Okay, wait, let's close that out. Okay. Oh, wow. Let's just close some of this stuff out. Okay, so we're going to go back here. And we're going to go back here. And so I've lost my train of thought. So what I'm going to do is, there's a couple of things that were brought up. But anyway.
Finance comes out of there. So if they say they're going to appropriate $2 billion to all black people and white, then you start up here and say, you're Cherokee. Let's say our this. In addition, the Holy See must be in direct dialogue with the appropriate representatives. So there needs to be appropriate representatives of indigenous peoples to discuss the church's accountability. We're holy and we racistly destroyed you as a people, corrupted your land, stole your resources, not to mention lied to you about God. The real big problem. The third committee has additionally recognized the Holy See, the Holy See in its response to the.
And so what he was saying was, there needs to be somebody, confront the source, and that is true because the Cherokee versus Georgia, they confronted the state, and they confronted the state of Georgia, and then they did. After that, they confronted the UN or the U.S. I don't know. I guess that's the corporation, but they confronted them, but they did not confront the source. So they still did not get down to the source of, who's the cause, which is, what is Lex saying here? Let me see. Sorry, y'all. It's not right. Okay, that's the doctrine. So that's what he was saying.
He's questioning regarding issues raised by the Apache Ni.
The Holy See. Okay, so I'm going back. That's not it. Okay. So I'm going to finish this up. Now, Worcester appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court claiming that Georgia lacked authority. Okay, we already read that. And they overturned, so they couldn't convict them. And then the Supreme Court's ruling, however, was neither followed by Georgia nor enforced by U.S. government. President Andrew Jackson, sensitive to Georgia's claims of independence at the time, when the states wielded considerable power, had no interest in enforcing the court's decree. The missionaries remained in prison until 1833, when a new Georgia governor negotiated their release. The Georgia Cherokees themselves were forcibly relocated in 1838 pursuant to a U.S. treaty to present-day Oklahoma. Wow. So they forced them out of Georgia into Oklahoma. And this is the present day, the Trail of Tears. And this is funny because I was talking to this sister, and she said when she drove through the Trail of Tears, she could feel the heavy spiritual presence on this road. Anyway, today, and I had no idea what she was talking about. She was just describing something to me, and she asked me, had I ever heard of Trail of Tears? And I said, no. So this is it coming back again. Now, today the substantive ruling in Worcester is no longer binding. So today it's not binding. The Supreme Court holds that to a certain extent a state may regulate the Indian territories within its boundaries. Okay. And this is written by Alex McBride, which is a third-year law student at Tulane Law School in New Orleans. He is articles editor on the Tulane Law Review and the 2005 recipient of the Ray Forrester Award in Constitutional Law. In 2007, Alex will be clerking with Judge Susan Braden on the United States Court of Federal Claims in Washington. We always want to give credit to the author of the article. I'm just blown away. So, I looked that up. Said look that up. I'm looking for what Lex said. Look up. Hold on.
Remarked that high-level meetings between indigenous peoples and the Pope regarding the canonization of Jupiter Sierra of the parallel report will occur at an unspecified but the knowledge of such meeting with indigenous peoples thus far included the Apache Ni, they spelled it wrong there, and working group, as well as additional issues raised by the parallel reports such as the doctrine of discovery, the Holy See's intercartarian-related papal bulls, and the past and ongoing effects of the legacy therein. The third committee has concluded that these issues and appropriate representatives of the indigenous peoples must include in said high-level meetings. So any meetings are saying that these representatives must be included. Here's the problem. Who is representing these people? Again, these people that are Mongolian, we know not who built Mound.
How can they be represented?
They're not original people.
Okay.
They're not the original Apache. So, who is there to represent you, the bloodlines of the Apache. Now, I know people are saying, oh.
Okay, so that makes me think the Cherokee versus Georgia, were those people Mongolians? Probably so. So that is a good point. Thank you, Lex.
Listen, nigger. We can't be Apache and Cherokee and Wyandotte and Fox. Shit to click on. You know, we're not gonna do that shit. You know. So here's the actual shadow report. Well, you can always look at this and read it yourself. Like I said, it's 135 pages. If you want it all printable, it's $6.75. And there were places where it's 5 cents a copy. Now, I was in Washington. I know it's like, well, 11 cents a copy. Was it 13 cents a copy there? I was there passing out flyers for my thingy, my shit with the Catholic, against the Catholic Church. And I showed him I just had simple flyers, no colors or anything like that. And I talked him down to 11 cents. Again, Washington is a place where, you start trying to get copies and try to charge you out your ass. I can't remember. I think the MLK library was 15 cents or 20 cents. I don't remember. It was a lot, in my opinion. So what you can always do, you can go over here, you can see my mouse right here. Click on that. You can always. So you go 225%. Alright. You see it says CANAD, Canada, Nova, Trans something. I can't do it. So who's it? Ludonific? Ayana. Ludovic, I can't read that. Somebody have fun with this. Tell me what this shit says. Nueva España, New Mexico. Now that's what's New Mexico today too, right? Yeah. Anyway, look, it's here. You can see it. You can examine it if you want. I know some of you guys are real touchy about shit. I'll leave that a little bit bigger because we're going to examine what's being said right here. So it says colonization, dispossession.
Now, what I'm going to do now is look up the Holy See, just to make myself a little more familiar with what it is. Now, the Holy See, and it's Latin for Sancta Sedes, ecclesial Latin Sancta Sedes, is the ecclesial jurisdiction of the Catholic Church in Rome, the episcopal see of the Pope, and an independent sovereign entity. It serves as the central point of reference for the Catholic Church everywhere and the focal point of communion due to its position as the preeminent episcopal see, the universal church. It traces its origins to the 1st century during the apostolic era, when St. Peter arrived to Rome to evangelize and formed a significant early Christian community of believers there. Today it is responsible for the governance of all Catholics organized in the particular churches, patriarchates, and religious institutes. And what that brought back for me is when Africanist Voices was speaking, and she said when you look up all of these saints, in their history. You know, so that's what brought back when she said St. Peter. So let's click on St. Peter. St. Peter, Syrian, Aramaic, Shimon, Kepa, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, Shimon, Bar Yonah, Greek, I don't know. Okay. He's also known as Simon Peter, Simeon, or Simon. According to the New Testament, was one of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ. He was a leader of the early Christian church, and he is also the apostle of apostles. An honored 3rd century theologian, Hippolytus of Rome, gave him, and the Roman Catholic Church considers him to be the first pope ordained by Jesus. In the Rock of My Church dialogue in Matthew 16:18. Now, the ancient Christian churches all venerate Peter as a major saint and associate him with founding the Church of Antioch and later the church in Rome, but differ about the authority of his various successors in present-day Christianity. So, you get a good, clear understanding from that first paragraph, and that's on Wikipedia. Now, we're going to go back. And I'm sorry, I'm on Let Us Find the Truth, his website. That's me and his public library. And I got to snooping around, and it's kind of addictive. Anyway, another thing I want to talk about here, and this might be out of order, but I looked up the word crucifixion. And once I finished listening to Drop, what I was thinking was, could it be that the cross and Jesus being nailed to the cross, the cross being something that they went through killing and, wearing around, it made me think about Easter and how we're celebrating the death. But could it very well mean that we're celebrating the death of ourselves over and over again? Because Jesus was just something they made up. But us as the indigenous, or us as the Hebrews, could the cross be like symbolization for the overthrow of the Hebrews? It's deep, man. I looked up crucifixion, and it's an ancient instrument of capital punishment and the method of slow and painful execution in which the victim is tied or nailed to a large exhaustion, and asphyxiation. It is principally known from antiquity, but remains in occasional use in some countries. Now, the crucifixion of Jesus is a central narrative in Christianity, and the cross sometimes depicting Jesus nailed to it is the main religious symbol for most Christian churches. So could the churches be a symbol of our defeat? And I'm just bouncing around ideas. That is crazy, though. When I read that, and let me see what else I looked up. Drop was talking about Seville. So I looked up Seville, and it has been one of the most important cities in Spain since ancient times. Now, the first settlers on the site have been identified with the Tartessian culture. And when I looked up, I'm not sure. Let me see. Yeah. Now, Tartessus. Tartessus was a semi-mythical harbor city, and the surrounding culture on the south coast of the Iberian Peninsula in modern Andalusia, Spain, at the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, It appears in sources from Greece and Near the East starting during the first millennium BC. Herodotus, for example, describes it as beyond the Pillars of Hercules. I remember Drop saying something about the Pillars of Hercules, or somebody saying something about the Pillars of Hercules. The Strait of Gibraltar. Roman authors tend to echo the earlier Greek sources, but from around the end of the millennium, there are indications that the name Tartessos had fallen out of use and the city may have been lost to flooding. Though several authors attempt to identify it with cities of other names in the area, archaeological discoveries in the region have built up a picture of a more widespread culture identified as Tartessian that includes some 97 inscriptions in a Tartessian language. The Tartessians were rich in metal. In the 4th century BC, the historian FOREX describes a very prosperous market called Tartessos, with much tin carried by river, as well as gold and copper from Celtic lands. Trade in tin was very lucrative in the Bronze Age, since it is an essential component to the true bronze and is comparatively rare. Herodotus refers to a king of Tartessus, Agathenios, presumably named for his wealth in silver. Now, the people from Tartessos became important trading partners of the Phoenicians, whose presence in Iberia dates from the 8th century BC and who nearby built a harbor of their own, which is good here. But this is, and I'm sure one of the brothers, y'all understand this better than me. When y'all start putting up those maps and the letters, G this, G that, I just get confused. My sense of direction has always been off, and just all these places that I didn't know the old name, new name, good name, bad name. I just don't know. But this is the map, and hopefully y'all can shed some light on that for me. And this is Archaeological Museum of Seville. These are some of the 10 artifacts. And this Iberia around 300 BC before the Carthaginian conquest. The residual Tartessian language is depicted in the southwest. And that looks familiar. Okay, so we're getting out of here. We're going to go back, get back on focus. So, we were still talking about the history of Seville. Now, the destruction of their settlement is attributed to the Carthaginians, giving way to the emergence of the Roman city of Hispalis, built very near the Roman colony of Italica, now Santa Ponce, which was only 9 kilometers northwest of present-day Seville. Italica, the birthplace of the Roman emperors Trajan and Hadrian, was founded in 206 through 205 BC. Italica is well preserved and gives an impression of how Hispalis may have looked in the later Roman period. Its ruins are now an important tourist attraction. And so we can get an idea of how this, it gives an idea of how Hispalis would have looked. This is the amphitheater. It's located in Spain. These are some of the artifacts, tourist spots. I have a planetarium. Isis, House of the Birds, Commons logo. Okay. So, we're going to get out of there. We're going to go back. I don't know. Well, I'm about to go, y'all. I just wanted to touch on some of the things that the brothers asked somebody to look up. Somebody, anybody, me. I don't know if I helped or hindered, honestly. But I'm going to finish this Seville drop. So, we just saw how his palace would have maybe looked if it was still there. Like I said, it was founded in 206 and 205 BC. Italic is well preserved, and it gives an impression of how his palace may have looked in the later Roman period. Now, its ruins are now an important tourist attraction under the rule of the Visigothic kingdom. His palace housed the royal court on some occasions. In Al-Andalus, Muslim Spain, the city was first the seat of Kourou, a Spanish Cora, or territory of the Caliphate of Cordoba, then made capital of the Tifa of Seville, which is Arabic, Taifa, Ishbiliya, which was incorporated into the Christian kingdom of Castile under Ferdinand III, who was the first to be interred in the cathedral. So that's Ferdinand, okay? Now, after the Reconquista, Seville was resettled by the Castilian aristocracy as capital of the kingdom. It was one of the Spanish cities with a vote in the Castilian courts, and on numerous occasions served as the seat of the itinerant court. The late Middle Ages found the city, its port, and its colony of active genoese merchants in a peripheral but nonetheless important position in European international trade, while its economy suffered severe demographic and social shocks such as the Black Death of 1348 and the anti-Jewish revolt of 1391. After the discovery of the Americas, Seville became the economic center of the Spanish Empire as its port monopolized the transoceanic trade, and the Casa de Contratación, House of Trade, wielded its power, opening a golden age of arts and letters. And what keeps coming up also are these ages. Hopefully somebody will look into that and explain to me. I looked at Professor Doom's video, and that's the one I sent to Lex, and he is always talking about the golden age and this is that, and sometimes I just listen to the whole thing and I don't understand any of it, and I just sometimes I can't grasp it because different people are into different stuff. As a female, I was never into the comics and the Transformers. Like, most of his videos is based around that. I don't know what level of knowledge he's bringing forward or if he's bringing any. But as I said, he's always just bringing up these ages. But anyway, so they ushered in the golden age of arts and letters, coinciding with the Baroque period of European history. The 17th century in Seville represented the most brilliant flowering of the city's culture. Then began a gradual economic and demographic decline as navigation of the Guadalquivir River became increasingly difficult until finally the trade monopoly and its institutions were transferred to Cadiz. Now, I'm going to stop here. You all can continue to read the history. Well, I'll go ahead. It's one more. Okay, so the city was revitalized in the 19th century with rapid industrialization and the building of rail connections, and as in the rest of Europe, the artistic literacy and the intellectual romantic movement found its expression here in reaction to the Industrial Revolution. The 20th century in Seville saw the horrors of the Spanish Civil War, decisive cultural milestones such as the Ibero-American Exposition of 1929 and Expo 92, and the city's election as the capital of autonomous community of Andalusia. And somebody, please look up Andalusia. If you don't feel like it, then I'll try to get back to it. Sometimes I forget. Forgive me. But those are some of the things that I just wanted to put in a video. The brothers were mentioning a couple of those things, and then, you know, me inserting my opinion. Again, when I watch the brothers, I usually have to watch 2 and sometimes 3 times because it's a lot of information. So if I have anything to add to that, or if I forgot to look up any portion that they brought out, then I'll do it in another video. It's late. I want to say peace and love to you all. This is just the etymology dictionary. And this is what I was thinking. I looked up Jesus and just, you know, seeing if the cross is or was just originally meant to be symbolization of crucifying the Hebrews over and over again, generation after generation. And when Drop always says all these crosses across America is a symbol of you being conquered, I'm wondering, like, was that the sorry, was cut off. Not only are we going to crucify you now at that point in time, but you and your generations to come. And the more that we crucify, the more crosses that we're going to put up. That's just what it made me think about. I don't know how true that is. It's just me throwing around my thoughts. Like I said, I think that's about it. I'm about to close some of this stuff out. I went over the Holy See. I did. The Doctrine of Discovery. I have 3 minutes available to record. So, this is something else Lex was mentioning earlier. I think I went over this. Let me see. No, I did not. Okay, so this is the Doctrine of Discovery. I found this on doctrineofdiscovery.org. And it said first that on the 23rd of May, 1609, James I, King of England, by his letters patent of that day under the Great Seal of England, did erect, form, and reestablish Robert Earl of Salisbury and others, his associates, in the letters patent named and their successors into a body, corporate and politic, by the name and style of the treasurer and company of adventurers and planters of the city of London for the first colony in Virginia, with perpetual succession and power to make, have, and use a common seal, and did give, grant, and confirm unto this company their successors 544 under certain reservations and limitations, and the letters patent express all the lands, countries, and territories situate, lying, and being in that part of North America called Virginia, from the point of the land called Cape or Point Comfort all along the seacoast to the northward 200 miles, and from the said Cape or Point Comfort all along the seacoast to the southward 200 miles, and all the space and circuit of the land lying from the seacoast of the precinct aforesaid into the land throughout from the sea west and northwest, and all the islands lying within 100 miles along the coast of both seas of the precinct aforesaid, and with all the soil grounds, rights, privileges, and apprentices, tenancies to these territories belonging, and in the letters patent particularly enumerated, and did grant to this corporation and their successors various powers of government in the letters patent particularly expressed. Okay, so they came, like I said, in patents. It went from 36,000 to 440,000. Okay? They came and stole everything and you know, by way of paper and words. I mean, this is on the doctrineofdiscovery.org. I'll read some more on it tomorrow, and I'll make another video.